Hi, I wanted to take a second and walk you through some of our new features, which are located over here if you hit Tools. So at the top, you will see all the previously available tools that you know and love. This will just take you right back to creating a question set. This lets you import questions that you already have that you might want to export into a different format. This writes student reading at a certain grade level. This creates an interactive video quiz. This lets you export vocabulary. All of that is stuff that we already had. But what we're doing now is making it easier to add a whole bunch of new tools. And eventually, the vision is that teachers can add their own AI tools to automate their workflows. But for now, we're just experimenting with a few tools here. So if you scroll down, you'll see these tools are organized into these categories: lesson planning, student engagement, assessment and feedback, personalization and inclusivity, classroom management, and productivity. And we will be adding more to these as we go, but just to give you sort of a taste, let's see, where should we start? One that I really like is teach this through that. This is for when you have something that you have to teach, but different students might have different interests. And so you want to think about brainstorm ways to present it to students who have different kinds of interests. Or maybe you are working with another teacher. For example, I taught science, but I worked very closely with our English teacher. And so I might put in our topic and then see how the AI thinks I could combine it with another subject. And for all of these, if you're not sure where to start, you can click fill in exemplars and it will show you kind of the kind of thing that works well if you put it into each of the inputs. So in this case, it put in this reading about convection, which is great. If you don't have a student reading, you can use the AI to write a student reading. But let's say you have this student reading. You can also leave it blank. It's just that it does better the more information that it has. So this is a reading about convection, which is science. And I'm thinking I want to collaborate with an English teacher. And if I wanted to, I could also add these learning outcomes. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it blank. So here it did some brainstorming on how you could connect convection and writing. So it's looking at interdisciplinary connections between science and English, and it's giving you some ideas here. Maybe you think this is decently good, but you also want to play around with it and see how it works with other subjects. So I put in science and social studies. It immediately brought up environmental impact and connections to geography and weather. And this is really great, global climate policy contribution. So for any of these, of course, I would have to do some more work to actually make it student facing. But this particular tool is really more about the brainstorming. So once it has created something for you, you can always give it a thumbs up and explain why and hit submit, or a thumbs down, explain why and hit submit. This really helps us make these tools work as best as they possibly can. Let's just look at another one to get a sense. I really like write student-facing instructions because for myself, I would have an idea like research an animal and make a presentation. But that's not a really full idea. It's not really a student-facing project instructions. So I could put my idea in to this tool and then it would write the student-facing instructions. So here it is. It's actually meant I could just copy and paste this into Canvas. And it actually even generated a whole rubric for me, which I can, of course, edit. The last one I want to show you is kind of just for fun, but it's explain the strengths of my lesson plan. So this is just something I noticed that was a disconnect sometimes between teachers working off of their intuitions and creating really brilliant lessons, but not necessarily having all of the jargon to explain why it was a brilliant lesson. So in this tool, you paste in your lesson plan here. And if you have some intuitions about what you want to highlight, you can paste it in or you can leave it blank. So this fill-in exemplar is a real lesson that I taught, and I wanted to highlight inquiry learning. And we can do that, but just to even see how it does if you give it a terrible lesson. So if I just write show kids a movie, it will do its best to justify this as a lesson plan. And it will help you figure out how you might want to frame a given lesson. So this is movie-based learning. It's multimodal, it's developing visual literacy, it could help with engagement and motivation. Here's how you would do active note taking. It helps with cognitive load. I'm not sure about differentiated instruction here. It's talking about auditory and visual learners. It definitely does real world connections. So this is just a fake example, but you could put in your real lesson plan and see how it does. And in addition to providing us feedback on every output, you can also just provide us general feedback, or you can request a specific new tool by clicking on this and filling out this form. And the last thing I want to show you is where you can see all of your outputs. So they didn't just disappear, they're being stored. If you go to the left sidebar here, you can see the tools you used most recently, and you can see your output history. So here's our most recent one, here's the one before. And if you click on it, you will see that output. And if you'd like to see the inputs, you can see them here. And then you can also go to saved. Here are your saved regular question sets. Here are your assignments if you've assigned anything through QuestionWell, and then here are the tool outputs. So here we have the most recent one and the one right before that. So play around with it. Can't wait to hear what you think and how we can make it even better.